I'll explain the game. So basically, Keegan is trying to end the game with the highest total. So I'm going to be offering him numbers randomly. In a second, I'll show him the group so he knows, he has a rough idea of the dispersion, the range of offers available. He can either turn down an offer or accept an offer. So, okay, I'm going to start now. I'm going to offer you randomly of the numbers in this group. So have some time to look at this group. You can either say yes or no. Can someone record how many offers he turns down? Or just someone count it in their head?
Five.
Okay. 5.
Do I put my own skill level into this? How much I think I'm worth?
Well, you're trying to win the game, end the game in the highest difficulty, so you have to judge how many offers you have to turn down. Okay. 7.
No.
15.
No.
12.
No.
14.
Oh yeah, we're 14.
14, okay. So how many offers did he turn down there? 3. He turned down 3, he ended with 14. So his final...
I was losing too many ones.
Exactly, his final total was 11. It's really dispersed here. Okay, here we go. 16. We do it again, yeah, 16.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So he's accepted, so 3 and 1. 10.
No.
6.
No.
13.
No.
16.
Yes.
Yes. So how many did he turn down? 3. He turned down 3. So the mean would probably be 2. And the mean, I'll show you the mean of 3. I've tested this on 20 different people. So thank you for coming. Well done, Keegan. Now Rob, on the other hand, I'm not going to show you. I'm going to just tell you the range here. It's between 5 and 8. So decide if you're going to accept or reject between 5 and 8. So 5.
Yes.
Okay, so he accepted 5. He turned down 9. 7.
Yes.
He's accepted 7, he's turned down 9.
He's desperate, he's been on.
He's desperate. We'll see, there's a model for workers for searchers like Rob. We'll get to him. Some psychologists have modelled Rob. And, okay, 8.
Yes.
Okay, see. Thank you very much. Obviously that was quite loose. That wasn't, you get the idea of what the game was. And it wasn't just someone there picking the numbers. The numbers were shuffled and handed to them. So it wasn't me just trying to pick and say which number it was. And I did this on 20 different students, about 13 to 14-year-olds, so they're in year 8 or so. And I'll show you the results. So before I talk about results, the purpose of the experiment was to establish a fundamental human trait that is so important for this project. Because you're trying to because I'm just establishing before I go on, the human trait and the human characteristic that means that we search, our search behavior is different in certain industries. So I wanted to establish that before I moved on. So the structure of the experiment. You've seen the structure, sequentially observed random variables, and there was a marginal search cost introduced just to make sure there was some parallel with the labour market and parallel with just everyday life. The sample, 20 students aged 13 to 14. I might repeat this experiment with 6 forms, so don't tell anyone when I'm working. I'm just going to present it to them far more formally. I might do if I have time to do that. So why did I choose to do an experiment like this? I've already said it's different. This is not an experiment you would see in formal work by economists. This is focusing on the human aspect, and there's so much economics. You're basically studying human behaviour. And so often you jump past the assumptions, you don't study the assumptions, and the assumptions are so important. So what I wanted to do was establish this trait before I moved on. The results. Okay, the results was as the range increased, the number of offers turned down by the students increased as well, as you can see quite clearly from there. Not everyone was as willing as Rob just to accept everything. The mean was about 0.47, which means some people did just say no thanks. And some people just were willing to search for maybe one small.
Is mathematically right though, with that range?
Pardon?
with that range, I think you should accept straight away, shouldn't you?
Well, not necessarily. You might, if you get 5, maybe you wouldn't accept straight away.
But then if you got 6 next, you'd accept 6. But if you got 7, you'd probably accept.
Because you've only got 50% chance of getting an increase in your original number.
No, because if you get 6, you might as well take it. Because if you get 7, you're minusing 2 anyway. So
exactly.
Yes.
So I get what you're saying. It is quite. There's a lot of incentive, and maybe the 13-year-olds didn't really understand this sort of. And you're not thinking because I presented to you. Let's play a game, basically. It's not, I'm trying to do this. Let's play a game. This is what you have to do. Maximize your final total. There's a marginal search cost. So as you can see, the results were quite conclusive with range. As range increased, the number of offers turned out increased, and I moved on from that. What I could have done, as this is just general GCSE science, increased reliability of results, doing the results again. I could have done that, and I might do that. But I would have done it if my focus was this study, if my focus was this experiment, and my focus wasn't this experiment. So I didn't think it was completely necessary to repeat. And there are other interesting, yes?
Isn't the biggest problem with this that the people, first of the people who are doing it aren't the same as job seekers?
No, but
and
I thought of that as well.
And also, there's a difference in between being asked to choose numbers at random and being asked to choose the wage of a job you're willing to actually work out.
You're still trying to win the game, is it?
Yeah, you're still. But can't you see that it's the same sort of idea?
Yes, except you don't have the -1 there, do you?
You do have the -1 when you search. It's a cost of losing money. Yeah, you're losing money. You're foregoing income.
Yes,
so
I think it's too high.
What do you mean? The search cost?
Yes, I think the search cost is
for my experiment was too high. I think it was too low personally.
I think it's too low.
I think it was too low.
What is it?
Because he thinks it's perfect.
If you decline a job, all the time you're wasting trying to get another one, you could be in a job making money. That's the point.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
but
true.
In your model, that's the equivalent of a gap in between. It could be up to, in certain models, 20% of a wage for a job.
Well, I see what you're saying. It could have been too high, and that was something I needed to think about. I chose 1 because I thought that 1 would be a significant deterrent for 13 to 14-year-olds not to just keep searching, and it was effective. There are other important conclusions from this. In group 4, only 7% of people weighted to 20. So only 7% of offers were 20. So it shows not everyone was just waiting for the highest offer. And it shows, what it showed to me anyway, was the marginal search cost was effective in deterring people. And I'm trying to make sure that it was near enough to uniform distribution. So there's no bias to lower offers or higher offers in the groups. So if there are any questions on the experiment before I move on, it's quite self-explanatory. Just something I need to do before I went into the real problem here. No questions? Good. Okay. So I've presented the Walker function as, and the only determinants of search time in the Walker function is reservation wage, the ratio of R and W, and dispersion. But there's obviously a lot more. I've never looked for a job, and one person told me, how can you give insight to job search when you've never looked for a job? And that's a fair question, because I'm basically just basing this on intuition, what I've read, work of the other economists, work of psychologists. But I think I do have a pretty good idea of the sort of job search from this research. So before I explain these other determinants of search time, I just want to establish the idea that you had knowledge of your industry because I flashed this in your face for 2 seconds. But I want you to make sure that you understand that job seekers don't have perfect knowledge on their industry, but they have some idea, and their decisions are based on their perceptions of market alternatives, so how they see the market. So obviously, the current state of the economy, how many people will really be turning down job offers? How many people will really be, no matter what it has to be over the reservation wage, but how many people will be turning down job offers strategically? So I think what I needed to do was introduce a component to the search time function that reflected that. It reflected the fact that the state of the economy was a significant determinant of search time. So when the economy is in a recession, there are fewer jobs created. You know there are more people unemployed, so there's more competition. You're not going to make the same decisions as you would if the economy was going well. And I was talking about impatient job seekers. That's the model I use to understand job searches in a recession, in the dip, they're impatient. They set lower reservation wages, so the amount of wages they accept increases, and they increase their search intensity. So they're searching more intensely. So macroeconomic uncertainty leads to, and I wanted to reflect this, and how I reflected it in the Walker search time function was this. V over U, where V was the vacancies in the industry, and U was the amount of people unemployed. So, as you can see, if macroeconomic uncertainty leads to more people unemployed and fewer vacancies created, so this drags down the expected searching of a job seeker. So, if this is decreasing, this whole thing is decreasing. And obviously, you must be able to see a flaw here, because what I'm saying is that each different component has equally swayed search time, and it doesn't, and I'll deal with that later. This is how I went through building the search time function. This is how I went through formalizing a model for expected value of search time. So V over U was a way to reflect the state of the economy and how that affected workers. Another one was intensity of search activity. So if you're searching more intensely, you're going to get more job offers, you're going to get more interviews, you're more likely to get a job offer. So what I did to reflect that, and T is never, so basically T is less than or equal to 1, but greater than 0. It can't be 0, because I'm suspecting that no one will just not search at all when they're unemployed, because that's just called exit from the whole system. You're not doing anything, you're just dead. So I'm saying that as search intensity, this represents the intensity of search. As this increased, the expected value of search time decreased. So you're all following this function. It's quite simple to follow, isn't it? Yes? Okay, so you're all following. So I tried to build these different components as I went. So mean wage, and for now, as I said, the flaw of this is that this is all equally weighted at the moment. So search intensity is as important as dispersion. And so I kept that for now, but the main issue with the project was trying to decide, is dispersion as important as those other factors? Does dispersion and wage offer really matter to a job seeker? So do any of you have jobs now?
Yeah.
How long did you spend searching?
A bit, about a month.
Did you think consciously about,
Yeah, because you hand out all the CVs and then you go for and if you get an offer, you're like, oh, it's a bit rubbish. Like McDonald's offer you like £3, and then so I turned that down, and then you ended up working in a cafe.
Oh really? Okay, so he did turn down an offer. But I differentiate low-income workers and high-income workers. The behaviour of both is not the same, and there are certain groups who are more affected by dispersion than others. And another part of the project was trying to identify those. Keegan and other young people like us, might not be as affected as other job seekers, and I'll just present that briefly. Okay, I want to present this example, and through presenting this example, you'll understand the group that I think is most affected by dispersion. So I've picked. Her name is Rebecca, and she has a 2-1 degree in an LEM subject. 2 to 3 years work experience. She's at her previous job. She's moved from a job and now she's searching for a new job. These are the wages in 2 different industries. Let's just say, first of all, she's in the same industry, but these are different possibilities. I make the point that she will spend a lot more time searching in this industry than she will in this industry naturally. If she's offered this, she will. And if she's offered this, she's likely to spend more time searching, knowing she can get this or this, because she has a good degree, because she has 2 to 3 years work experience. So, Keegan, did you have work before that?
No.
Exactly. Here's your first job. You're not going to behave the same way as someone in that position. And I tried to explain that in this project. But different job seekers and different people in different circumstances will behave differently. Different. Okay, so I've explained the Walker search time function. It's quite easy to understand. So the components are as follows: dispersion, the ratio of reservation wage to mean wage offered. This sort of reflects macroeconomic uncertainty, so the ratio of vacancies to unemployment and the intensity of search time. So 1/T is search. As intensive search time increases, the expected value of search time decreases. Is that all understood? Before I move on. Where am I? Okay, so the question, does dispersion really matter? So I've hinted at low-income groups, and a study I tried to go to psychologists as much as I could. So you can't just suppose that search time is lengthened by these factors without understanding the psychological effects of search time and really understanding the cost of continued search. Because the cost of continued search to job seekers is not just income foregone. And research found that, this is common sense. Research found that the amount of time spent in a good mood falls as you, when you're unemployed, you set low reservation wages, you become disheartened. So there are severe psychological costs of continued unemployment. But the study that I consulted the sample was unemployment insurance recipients. So these are people who work in low-income industries. These are relatively poor people. So that's why I felt that throughout the essay, it was important to distinguish that low-income groups are sort of exempt from dispersion affecting them significantly. So we have to look at workers who are in competitive industries, workers who have significant wealth, workers who can live comfortably unemployed. So I think that was an important distinction to make. Knowledge of the job seeker. We've talked about knowledge. It's not perfect, but job seekers, you have some idea of the other offers available in your industry. It was the psychological study I was referring to. The sample was about 63,000 individuals, and they were tested over a period of 12 weeks or so. So it was a very intense study, and I didn't want to hold on to the conclusions too much. Because, as I said, it's a low-income group, it's unemployment recipients. It's not the same as looking at Rebecca, as we looked at earlier. So, evaluating. Yes? All right. You didn't stand up to ask a question. So, what I was saying, as I said, it's important to focus on high-income earners and the frictionally unemployed. So think about the dissatisfaction of think about the depression that the psychological study found. Why are they depressed, unemployed? Well, I thought, okay, maybe it's the idea that if you're getting turned down, you're feeling disheartened. But think about Rebecca, think about people like Rebecca. They are being strategical by moving jobs. They're moving jobs because they're looking to maximize their benefit, to maximize the wage they find. They're not moving jobs like low-income earners because they're most concerned because low-income earners, they're more concerned with very simply a flow of income. Keegan was looking for a job simply because he needed money. Of course, he wasn't going to accept £3 because his reservation wage, he felt he was worth more than £3 an hour. But he felt it was worth more than that. But what was my point? But yeah, so evaluating this, I've recognised that the huge flaw in the initial Walker search time function was the fact that it didn't reflect that some components are more important than others. So what I did was I separated the components and introduced coefficients. So as you can see, I'm saying that the most important determinant of search time, and through research, I'm not just picking this out of thin air. I researched, I evaluated evidence, and I found that the most important determinant of search time was the state of macroeconomy. So it was this ratio. Because if there are more people unemployed, if you're competing against more people, you're going to be more impatient, you're going to set low reservation wages, and you're going to increase intensity of your search activity. So I established this as one of the most important factors of search time. And followed by this, because if Sachs and Ashford are the most important researchers on this issue, they found that if you search more, common sense, if you search more, you're going to get more job offers, you're going to find a job easier. So I think that's quite obvious. If you search more, you're going to get more, you're going to get a job quicker. But I just want to introduce, before I forget really, I want to introduce research in the 2004 American Economic Review. And I just thought that this sort of vindicated the idea that dispersion is important. But is because they found that, so people that search for jobs through the internet, you're going to, I feel anyway, you're going to be introduced to a greater dispersion of wage offers. You're going to find more range in the amount of, in the wage and in the conditions that you're exposed to. They found that people who search through the internet did not find jobs quicker. They didn't. Their search arm wasn't smaller than those who looked through newspapers and other avenues. So what I found from that is that because they're searching for the internet, the dispersion of wage offers they come into contact with is increasing. So that's why their search time is still great, because dispersion, the greater dispersion they're in contact with, the more they'll search, because they know there are other alternatives in the market. So I found that this is the dispersion from these four components. There might be other components, biological characteristics, other components I've ignored, but from these four components, I have to, end that the dispersion of wage offers is probably the least important component to most people, because think about it. Especially in the state of the economy as it is now, job searches aren't going to be turning down offers strategically. They're not going to be strategic. So once this is dealt with, and this is dealt with, and this is dealt with, then maybe we can start talking about dispersion as a significant determinant to search time. So I've already discussed the common sense thing, and as you can see, most of the things I've explained, there aren't the most complicated things. None of it is really complicated. Then why did it take me so long to write and so long to reach these conclusions? Because most of you could have reached these even without the research, but I think you really would have. And so, but I think it's still important to use these models, to use things like the Walker search time function, because if I only had 5 minutes to explain this, I would have probably just used the function just completely. I'd have started with that and said, what does it say about the search time, and then gone on to the real Walker search time function, which introduces coefficients. And that would be my presentation done, because it's quick and it's easy to understand. But there are obviously a lot more, there are obviously other important factors that you can't just discuss in a purely quantitative manner. So I had to include psychological study. I had to consider psychological study. I had to consider the contribution of this experiment. And what is the contribution of this experiment? Well, I did establish, the results were conclusive. I did establish an important trait in human behavior, but I was trawling through a journal and I found something that was written literally, it wasn't yesterday, but it was like a week ago, and it was talking about integrating personality psychology into economics and the sort of challenges that introduces. Because whatever you find out here is not stable. It's not, because different conditions, a condition like recession, that could compromise what we found there. So for example, if I rammed up the search cost too, you're losing 3 each time you turn it down. No one's gonna turn down offers, because that marginal search cost is the idea that in a recession, so think of a low-income worker on unemployment benefits. In a recession, the amount of revenue the government get will decrease, so the amount of benefits they get may decrease. So the search cost to them of turning down an offer will increase. So that's the idea that whatever personality trait I've established here may be compromised in different circumstances and different conditions. So what's the project's impact on me? Well, I just thought, I played around with a small sharp question. This is something the conclusions I reached were basically the same conclusions I reached before I went through this research. So what's the impact? What's the point really? Well, I thought that the way I reached those conclusions were far more mature and far more meaningful than before just speculating, because I did reach these conclusions intuitively. And the reason why I did it really was that this was my light bulb moment, because I was sitting in an economics lesson and I thought, oh my god, I've just come up with the greatest thing in the world. And a few Google searches of going through a few journals, I found out very quickly that other people have speculated, other people have thought about these things and formalized these things. So it was an idea of, oh my god, I'm the next Einstein, I just thought about this. But obviously I wasn't, because other people have thought about it, other people have dealt with these similar questions. So the three most, and reflection on economic methodology. I don't know if I would say that an experiment like this is important, is essential for economists, because I can't argue about it. It's different for each question. But I just want to talk about something that came out today, actually. I was just reading something today. I don't know, I can't remember his name. Something Fisher or something, of New York University. His background is in medical neuroscience, but he's just been appointed to New York University Economics Department. And he's basically, he's a pioneer in what's called the neuroeconomics revolution. And it's the idea that neuroscience and understanding how the brain works will help you understand bigger economic systems. So what's the first thing we learn is that all individuals are utility maximizers. And what he's trying to do is find structures in the brain that can support that. And he hasn't been able to find that. So what that means is that economics is shaken at its foundation, and it's only because you've integrated research, because you've integrated methodology that's not necessarily being taught as economics. And the only reason because I always present this as a critique of economics. You fail to predict the recession. Is it because our foundations are wrong? Is it because we're quite rigid in our research? I don't know, because I'm not a researcher. I'm not an actual economist. Not done any research. I'm only speculating. I'm only really catching hints of what I see out there. But going back to the problem, so these are the three most important things I think I found through my research. That number one, the state of the economy is the most significant determinant of search time. Number two, the effect of wage offer dispersion on low-income workers is almost negligible. So it's almost not even worth discussing. And I also conclude, importantly, that the effect of dispersion is most significant for fractionally unemployed workers in high-wage industries. So industries where dispersion means they're turning down quite a lot. They're turning down quite a lot in monetary terms. So yeah, just looking at you guys, what does that really mean to you? Reflecting on this, what does that mean? It doesn't really mean much. Is it worth? Because I'm talking about these are the sort of questions that dominate journals in economics. If someone is not an economist, not a historian, if they don't care, what's the point of research like this? Because it's great, and I remember I talked to when Dr. Philip Kirker came, when I presented this to him, it was great satisfaction. There's a lot of self-satisfaction saying, this is what I did. He was sort of, oh yeah, that's great, that's good, look at this, look at that, and that's great. I think that's why economists do small, sharp questions like this. When I talked to Professor Andy Mackay, he was like, oh good, and there wasn't really the same impact, because he's dealing with questions that, he's dealing with bigger questions like aid, development, distribution of income in the third world. He's in with questions that answer the public mission, that can be translated and that have effect on people that aren't economists. So it's worth just thinking, should economists just be dealing with internally generated questions, just batting through each other, batting through faculties, batting through from Chicago to Cambridge to London, just having an internal discussion? Or should there be more people like Professor Andy Mackay who are dealing with the big questions? And what I actually wanted to deal with was, I just present this briefly, I wanted to look at our school in Uganda, and I wanted to look at the village there. I wanted to see how the composition of that economy has changed in the last 10 years. So how important has agriculture been in the last 10 years? And that will tell us so much, as well as about the impact of aid, what we need to do in the future, because after saying all this, what's the policy impact of anything I'm doing in nothing? What's the impact? I'm just going to move on from this, really, because it's not really, it's an important piece of work for me, and as a postgraduate, this might be the same thing I come back to, and with what I've learned, use far more impressive maths than this, and far more, and far more rigid assumptions. But, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you understand why I've been rambling on about for the last 3 months, and I hope you see now that Walker search and function isn't really all that. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for coming. That's it. I've literally been talking for about, I don't know what time is, a long time. Any questions at all? Any questions about any of this? I've basically tried to answer the questions I thought you might ask. So, any questions at all? No? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for coming.